Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Gyle here, and welcome back to the Forged Alliance Forever promotional series. Missed a couple of casts at the beginning of the week there. Apologies for that. I've had a couple of very sick little kids on my hands this week. We've had trips to the doctors, trips to the hospital, you name it, we've had it. And unfortunately, something had to give, and that thing was your SOPCOM time. So apologies once again. You know, got to get your priorities straight, man. Anyway, we are back on some sort of even keel now. You may also have noticed that I've ditched the Machinima logo from the front of my video. I am still a part of Machinima, but I think it's unfair that you guys should have to sit through that. You're hopefully watching a commercial. If you're not using AdBlock, you also have to sit through my own little intro screen there. And considering Machinima do absolutely nothing for me in any way, shape or form and collect 40% of my paycheck for their trouble, they can go sit and spin and get their publicity somewhere else, because I ain't going to do it anymore. I don't think you should have to sit through it either. Anyway, on to today's game. It's going to be a ladder match, and it's all going to go down on Seraphim Glaciers. So let's go on over to the game zone and see how these guys are going to get on. Now, this is quite a surprise to me, because I was pretty sure I casted my last, or had casted my last Seraphim Glaciers ladder match game. For those of you that don't know, this map was in the conventional ladder pool, that is the old ladder pool before we brought in the personalized mapping system where people can select the maps that they want to play on. But this was in there for a long time. People hated it, mainly because it's a 20k map, the islands quite far apart. It basically forces you, more often than not, into a protracted naval battle. And that's not what people like when they go in for ladder. Apparently people want to get in, play a quick game. They like their 5, their 10 kilometer land battle games. They like to know what they're in for, know it's going to be sometime between 8 minutes or 30 minutes max in a game. And they just weren't feeling the larger maps. Zep dug his heels in, and to be honest, I agree with him, because there's so much more to SOPCOM than those small 5 and 10k maps. But now, the new system, I guess this is one of the things that prompted the change. But astonishingly, there are some people who pick it for their map. So I am thrilled to say that we have one here. It's not a brand new game. It's about 2 weeks old. I think this was played on the 11th of January. But yeah, apparently these guys don't mind it. And I'm thrilled, because it makes for some very interesting and different ladder games. Let's take a look at our players, or our intrepid, bold Seraphim Glacier players. Up here at the top left in the blue corner, we have Adjuton. He's going Seraphim, opening first land and then second and third air. And his opponent down here at the bottom right in the red corner, none other than the world famous BlackDeath. He's misclicked and gone Cybrin, and he's opened first land, second air, and he's queued up third naval, so he's got the full spectrum of units on the go right from the outset there. Air, of course, absolutely essential on this map. Too much mass on these other redundant starting locations for anyone to avoid. The first one, or to ignore. Anyone who does will undoubtedly lose, and that game will be decided in the first 5 or 10 minutes when their opponent goes for it. So you end up in a bit of a race for a transport, and before that you often get a little bit of intercept to play, which is what looks like we have going on here. Adjuton going to head southeast with his first interceptor. BlackDeath not playing too shabbily at all. He's going to go straight for some interceptors himself, not going to go straight for an early transport and risk getting shot down. He is going to pull off that kill though and defend his airspace very nicely. More planes out everywhere for Adjuton, and this is where we might see a slight advantage from the dual second and third air factory. Adjuton having 2 air factories on the field rather than that early naval. I think that's got to be more use, right? You're going to need to defend the skies. You're going to need to be able to escort your transports, make sure they make landfall with their engineers so you can grab these early land points. So we've even got some bombers out from Adjuton as well, scout planes, interceptors and bombers, so if any of the transports do slip through the nets, you can go after the engineers on the ground with the bombers and basically have the same effect. Whereas BlackDeath, of course, not going to be able to have that luxury. We do have a transport en route, and that's laden with 4 engineers. Going to go right over to the center of the top section here of the northeastern starting island, and BlackDeath, with great anticipatory skills, is going straight after it with a couple of interceptors. That is uncanny, but then you are going to expect he's going to lock on transport needs to drop them now. It pulls back, and Adjuton's going to lose the transport and all 4 engineers on board. That is a horrendous blow to the start of his campaign. Another transport, meanwhile, this time laden with 3 engineers. It's going to head towards the southeastern island. We've got 1 scout plane hovering around that section now for BlackDeath, but no interceptors in the area. Also a couple of escorting inties there from Adjuton. It looks like he's going to do slightly better, I would think. Engineers coming in, meanwhile, on the northeastern island from BlackDeath. Interceptors coming in, but I think they're going to be fractionally too late. They're going to be able to kill the transport, but all 5 engineers have made landfall. Instantly start queuing up those land factories. Didn't manage to pick off the transport. I don't think that's gotten home safe and sound. There we go, but a bomber has locked onto those engineers from BlackDeath. A nice split, though, from Adjuton. Keeps all 3 of them alive, and defending interceptors deal with the bomber and remove that threat. And also, though, another incursion from BlackDeath, this time on the southeastern island as well. 4 engineers have made landfall and queued up a pretty significant quantity of land factories. So we're going to get some land battle ensuing over here on the southeastern island. But as yet, no counter landing from Adjuton on the northeastern island. So he has a very limited envelope, a time envelope, to make landfall again, or at least attempt a landfall again on this northeastern island before it will be overrun and nigh on impossible for him to take it back. Doesn't look like he's preparing to do so at the moment. Another bombing pass from BlackDeath, this time a little bit more successful, picks off an engineer. But 3 land factories online already for Adjuton, 3 as well online for BlackDeath. That number steadily climbing for both. A lot of interceptors on the field for Adjuton. Things going well for him in the early air game. You can see why he's gone for 4 air factories on that starting island. How does that compare to BlackDeath, who's sitting on just 2? Decent amount of Mantis on the ground. Mantis and Thams pretty well matched up. 270 HP on the Mantis to the 280 on the Tham. Not a great deal in it. Don't have any great disadvantage like you have against the hit points of the Striker or against the range of the Aurora. Bombers coming in overhead from Adjuton, helping to thin out. And this is looking quite even down here. Adjuton is a factory down, and it's absolutely vital that he makes a stand on this island. He cannot afford to allow BlackDeath to secure this, because BlackDeath, of course, seemingly now has control of the northeast island, but has also made landfall in the middle island. And while this is notoriously difficult, of course, to hang on to from the mid-game, with the naval units that are inevitably going to be battling around it, this is all mass that's going into BlackDeath's coffers. And you can see at the moment he's rocking 81 to 61 in terms of advantage against Adjuton. Adjuton now evened up the amount of land factories on this southeastern, or southwestern island, sorry. And I think he's done a nice job as well of bombing engineers. Unless they've gone straight up, this might be another drop. But look at that, just as I say. I don't know whether that was the original core 5 set of 5 engineers that landed at the bottom right and built these factories and then migrated, or if that was another drop. There is an empty transport making its way up there, so that could have been another drop, but it certainly didn't last long if that's the case. Didn't even finish that radar system. All 5 engineers obliterated in one pass from a bomber who will clearly get some kind of shiny robot medal for his trouble. BlackDeath cagily moving forward, presents a nice forward-facing facade of his troops towards Adjuton. There's a few few lucky blows, but then in retreat it all breaks down. Formation disappears. Formation important in SOPCOM. People don't always realize how important, but it makes a massive difference if you can present a much wider face of forward-facing units to your opponent. Nice bombing run there. 3 Mantis taken out in one pass. Interceptor coming in though to penalize the bombers for their trouble. And BlackDeath forced to back up slightly and start erecting PD. Certainly slow down Adjuton's progress. No Zuis in this mix for the moment. These bombers are really making the difference on the ground here from Adjuton. Fortunately, no wall sections deployed around the PD, so the FAMs can break this line of Mantis. Should be able to chew up those PDs reasonably quickly, but don't seem to quite have the manpower to get that done at the moment. Let's see what's going on in the naval game. Still just that one naval factory for BlackDeath. You can really see how that hasn't really done anything for him. He hasn't upgraded. He's just producing engineers for the moment from it. He hasn't gone for any super early subs to try and deny his opponent up here, who incidentally has branched into the naval game in a big way. A ton of frigates on the field and already at T2 for one of those factories. But if he'd have gone for that other air factory, he would have found it even easier. It's not saying it hasn't gone well for him. He's currently ahead of Adjuton. But imagine if he had extra access to interceptors, he may even have denied Adjuton the ability to make landfall on this island at all. That's why hardcore push for air is so important. The distance is really too large to be sneaking any early subs right the way up here anyway. So what I'm saying is I like Adjuton's build better, but it makes no difference because BlackDeath is currently winning. 133 to 106 in mass. Cerberus turrets on the way, so we have a T2 land factory there. It's not the HQ though, wisely. BlackDeath locating that headquarters over here, I would imagine. No, it's not. How on earth is that headquarters? Must be up here. There it is. The HQ right up there at the top right island. Interesting decision. But it was too little too late. The Cerberus turret wasn't allowed to complete. Got a couple of hoplites on the field, but it's not going to be enough to hold back the tide of FAMs sweeping through these land factories. And I think that represents a win on the ground on the southwestern island there for Adjuton, and a crucial win at that. He's behind in mass and urgently needs to catch up. This will go some way to allowing that to happen. T2 air in play now for BlackDeath as a Renegade shows up on the field. And we can see an immediate emergence of ISIL's mobile T1 anti-air for Seraphim. More Renegades coming in, this time in significantly greater number. Be able to cause some major problems, maybe even clean up this entire blob of land units. Have we got another transport of engineers incoming? That is the question. Not at the moment. It seems BlackDeath's policy is eradication, not colonization of that southwestern island, at least for the moment. A lot of ISILs moving in though. You can see the amount of ground to air fire coming up there towards those gunships and interceptors, and planes just falling out of the sky now. For once, not because of inferior Cybran technology, but a whole wave of inties brought in from the north there from Adjuton, going straight after the Renegades, dispatches them in a single pass. Now we'll be able to clean up the skies altogether. That will represent the end of that little campaign at the bottom left-hand corner, I think. BlackDeath coming in with another wave of interceptors, but I'm not sure what will be gained from this engagement, especially considering it's going to be going on over the top of all of that T1 mobile. And indeed, BlackDeath turns tail and returns to base. A significantly more evenly shaped map now. There's just the case of the middle island still in BlackDeath's control. But in terms of eco, it's decidedly uneven still. 174 mass to 131 in favor of BlackDeath. Taking a look at reclaim figures, the best part of 6,000 or 5,919 banked so far for BlackDeath. Adjuton, conversely, presumably has made a great deal of the mass down here. This mass field, this battlefield, done much better. He's going to be approaching 12,000 before too long. 11,288 banked currently. So that mitigates that deficit somewhat. A deficit, though, still of 32 at current reading. And now we enter a lull in the game. There was obviously a little bit of combat around here. Perhaps we had another cheeky transport across the water from BlackDeath. Certainly a few wrecks, a few tanks, and a bunch of dead extractors a moment ago. You can see the frigates all piling up from Adjuton around that island. Salem class bombarding the southwestern island now, going after the only recently constructed mexes, and the engineers roaming to pick up what mass they can. But a nasty looking fleet heading south now from Adjuton, and a wave of Corsairs coming in from BlackDeath as well. No cruisers present. They're going to go straight after the destroyers. Adjuton is ready with his interceptors, though. These Corsairs are not going to last too long at all. Barracudas going after the body of frigates. They have, of course, no way to retaliate. Just 3 destroyers remain now for Adjuton, down to 2. Cruiser and Salem up here, dodging another bunch of units, mostly predominantly frigates, but 1 destroyer bringing up the rear as well. Adjuton prioritizing Navy in a big way. BlackDeath actually slipping behind in eco. For the first time in this match. I think that might have been a power drain, temporarily speaking. Back up in front, 222 to 211. Adjuton's naval forces now pounding that middle island. Perhaps a little bit too heavy on the focus of cruisers in Adjuton's build queues. Seems to be doing all right with it. Perhaps I spoke too soon. A bunch of renegades hitting again at that top middle island. All 4 mexes taken out of commission, but Adjuton making the transition to T3 Air comes in with a wave of ASFs. He's going to be tidying up those without any difficulty. How does that represent down here? We also have T3 Air Factory as well, with outrageous amounts of build capacity surrounding it. So BlackDeath poised to enter the ASF race as well. And despite the momentary boost in cruiser numbers, easing off of destroyer production. Adjuton's fleet in the middle, for the moment at least, faring reasonably well. Small band of naval units moving northwest from BlackDeath's side of the map, coming in around the back of Adjuton's main island. One destroyer dispatched to intercept from the north, and two more coming in from the east. Cruiser joins the party for BlackDeath. That's going to want to keep that cruiser at a distance. Spy planes brought in over the top, and a whole wave of interceptors that are just going to be thrown away from BlackDeath, brought in over the top. Corsairs coming in as well. What's their target? Is it the T3 air factory? It certainly seems that way, but that's nowhere near enough. It's a dramatic underestimation of Adjuton's air power there from BlackDeath. Corsairs getting the best part of half a pass in. I think a bunch of those Corsairs went down before discharging their weapons. Is the end of all units on Central Island there for BlackDeath. 27 minutes gone so far in this one, and looking reasonably even on the ground, but eco-wise, BlackDeath storming ahead, pumping an awful lot into his eco. Hopefully not too much though. Adjuton significantly further ahead in power, and that is busy being rectified by Adjuton, who's throwing together T3s as quickly as he can. And strategic missile defense on the way for Adjuton. It's getting to that stage in the game where you might start to be a little bit concerned that your opponent could be rushing a nuke. I'm pretty sure that's not what's on the cards, but better safe than sorry, especially if you suddenly out of nowhere gained an advantage on the field. You might think, where has all of that mass and energy gone? Well, it's gone into staying ahead whilst losing mexes. BlackDeath has been staying ahead on eco. He's been teching up his eco quicker. So those super weapons on the way, but that doesn't mean Adjuton shouldn't be afraid of it. Strap bombers splitting up over the northeastern island. The first real incursion we've seen from Adjuton on that island since that transport went down. There are bangers floating around on this island. Certainly wishes he has some T3 anti-air on there, but his ASFs will come in and get the job done. However, pay a pretty price for eliminating those strap bombers. Down goes the second one. We're going to get a little bit of an ASF fracas over the top of that northeastern island. The interceptors come in as well to join them, but only a portion of them. Actually, it's gone really quite badly for Adjuton. ASF's returning home for BlackDeath as Adjuton's naval forces push on towards his main base. Seraphim Navy too strong. Destroyers carve through the rest of those Salins, leaving just Barracudas. One Salem a little bit further back. Whether or not they're going to be able to get down here and start hitting this build capacity, though, around these naval facilities is another matter. We do have T3 naval facilities down there for BlackDeath. That is an out-teching. Of course, there's very little that's going to help with at the moment. Yes, they can start building Galaxies, but I think you're going to want more Salems and more Barracudas initially to try and gain an advantage in the sea, which currently he doesn't have. He's forced to bring out large quantities of cormorants. That's the Cybran torpedo bomber to help finish off these destroyers. There goes the last one, and those interceptors for Adjuton brought down and put to some use. A little bit irrelevant now on the field. Might as well throw them away, killing off something. Of course, the only problem is you're depositing more mass on BlackDeath's doorstep. And BlackDeath actually behind now in the eco game. 314 mass to 343 from Adjuton. Really look at the difference in reclaim. 8,937 banked so far for BlackDeath. Adjuton has pulled in 30k. Excuse me. Strategic missile defense on the way this time for BlackDeath. I wonder if that's in response to something. Has he seen anything? He might have seen that. There is indeed a strategic missile launcher on the field now for Adjuton. Missile looking to be around about 10 to 12% complete, I think. And that little strat bomb attack, I think, is what we can credit for the change in fortune there in the mass game between these two guys. BlackDeath are now slipping behind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mass points destroyed. The ones that are left are T1. It could have been all of them. There is one T2 down here. Another transport with engineers, this time maybe going towards the middle, wants to drop them off soon, does manage it. Question is, what's Adjuton planning to do with it? Strat bombers caught out though there by BlackDeath. That's a painful loss, looked to be about 5 or 6 of them. He wants to turn on stealth and get them home though. Adjuton's ASF's tidying up what's left of BlackDeath's Inti force over the middle. Interestingly, BlackDeath not wanting to get his ASFs involved in the fight down here. Like if he'd done it a little bit earlier, they've got something done. Some pursuing ASFs come in from Adjuton, reinforcing, I should say. They get picked off. BlackDeath running a stretch all the way home. Of course, the last thing you want to do with your planes when you're engaging an enemy formation is to show that formation your rear. Allow them to get in behind you. Revenant out for BlackDeath, looking like he wants to repay the favor for the top right, but on to the bottom left. One mech's down. Sorry, not mech's down. The second pass will get it though. There we go. T2 taking 2 passes. But ASF's quick to tidy up, and that's not actually a particularly good play from BlackDeath. It's just deposited reasonable amounts of mass in this locale. Not sure if that strap bomber probably got shot down. That's a boat, that's a destroyer. Strap bomber would have been shot down somewhere around here. More access to mass for Adjuton, who's already outstripping BlackDeath considerably in the reclaim game, approaching 37,000 mass to the 22,500. So BlackDeath has recouped quite a chunk of that mass. And now it looks like it could be Adjuton's turn to be shooed off the central island. A ton of Salems just drawing closer to it. That is a lot of Seraphim destroyers picking on one lone northern Salem to begin with, and then finding another. Salem's just giving up that little bit of an advantage to the Seraphim destroyers in terms of HP. Of course, not forgetting the versatility of the Salem, the fact that it can sprout legs and go wandering. So forget as well that the Seraphim destroyer can submerge. The sheer weight of firepower coming in now is going to be too much for Adjuton. He might as well turn and run. Barracuda's giving chase, and that is going to be the end of that forward fleet. More reinforcing destroyers on their way in, though. We do finally have T3 naval from Adjuton, who's going to really want to think about getting some sub-hunters on the field, and quick. BlackDeath still not recovered on this northeastern island. I can't believe the mass points that haven't been claimed. Still this battle rages on in the middle. Decent air coverage from Adjuton with his ASFs. Could be doing a little bit more with a few strats or some torpedo bombers. Opportunity has passed though now. BlackDeath coming in with a wave of ASF significantly larger than what Adjuton has on the field. There are more queued up back at base, and indeed we do finally have the first sub-hunters making their way onto the field of battle. Very cagey game indeed, and I don't know if that is due to reclaim or what, but suddenly Adjuton has jumped in mass. There's now the best part of 100 mass deficit between these two guys, and that is unsustainable for BlackDeath. He needs to re-establish his mass gain on this island. He's going in bit by bit with his engineers, getting it done, but not quickly enough in my mind. Best part of 40 minutes gone in this one. BlackDeath simply cannot afford to sit on that kind of a deficit. He's generating huge quantities of power though, 39k to Adjuton's 25k. And many, many more on the way. Leads me to believe that he's brewing something dangerous. And there we go, the nuke finally ready and launched, and in fact That one's been sitting in the clip for a while because there's almost another one ready. It is making its way to the bottom right-hand island, but it's not going to go anywhere near the nuke defense for BlackDeath. It looks like it's going after the exposed mexes at the top right, and that is 4 T3 mexes with BlackDeath already behind. 108 mass per tick. Wiped off the face of the earth for BlackDeath. You can see him dropping massively, 493 mass to 249, and that is a devastating nuke. It might seem like that didn't destroy very much, but 4 T3 mexes, all with associated mass. It's very nice target selection from Adjuton, who was already ahead, but now extends his lead in eco. Sub-hunters gradually beginning to climb in number. That presents potentially a dangerous end for BlackDeath. Yes, he's got a nice chunky fleet in the center of the map at the moment, but the further he extends, the larger the distance between him and his reinforcements, and of course pushing on into headfirst into superior technology. And now these sub-hunters are really rolling off the conveyor belt. How many are we looking at now? 8 sub-hunters on the field. Using their range and their speed to try and avoid counterfire. Handful of cruisers trying to picket Adjuton's ASFs, who pulls them further inland. A couple of exposed mexes on the southeast corner of Adjuton's starting island there, getting harassed. Seraphim torpedo bombers brought in to try and effect some damage, and that's actually a lot of cruisers and a lot of air coverage as well. And now suddenly we're seeing fringe T3 mexes for Adjuton under pressure here. A couple more further in could be at risk as well. If this breaks, that's a lot of power that could suddenly be wiped off Adjuton's books. But another nuke out, and it's a close support nuke. Danger close, and that is going to land perfectly, taking out predominantly the main body of Sirens, leaving just 4 out of that massive pack. But he'll be able to deal with those now, especially with the horde of submarine hunters that are heading that way. And not only that, insult to injury, Adjuton wins a significant air battle over the top. Absolutely brutal. But look at this, BlackDeath tele-masering into Adjuton's base. That's what all that power was for. Immediately starts construction of some shield gens to keep his comms safe. What is he going to be able to get done? He can't go for the sniper, I don't think. Where is Adjuton's comm? Is it under the water? There it is. Adjuton's safe from that maser. But the question is, how much of his base will go pop? He's going to want to take out that nuke launcher. Surely. He's also throwing together Cerberus turrets nice and quickly, and he's activated his teleport once again. He's going to get out of there, going to allow these Cerberus turrets to get some stuff done without him. Doesn't want to risk his commander, and away he goes. Where's he gone to? Has he gone home? There he goes, re-emerges under shield coverage. Very nice work from him indeed. Still, those Cerberus turrets are alive, and then of course Curse of the Commentator comes into play and they immediately get destroyed. Nuke launcher still in play though, but that's a decent amount of power that has been taken out. However, one would say not enough, and Adjuton still enjoys a very, very healthy mass advantage in this one. BlackDeath starting work on a nuke of his own, and has a couple of galaxies down here, so we could see some galaxy ground fire tactics employed against this sub-fleet, but my god, that is going to be a lot of sub-hunters. I think he can probably afford to go with some above water bombardment, which is what he's done. Round of cruisers coming in. We've even got some battleships around here as well. Handful of Salems up top for BlackDeath, bearing down on Adjuton's base. Might be able to pick up some build capacity kills here. Probably going to want to get on land actually with those Salems as quickly as possible. But at exactly the same time, the sub-hunters begin to move south as well. That nuke launcher complete. Lots of build capacity summoned to help construct the nuke. I think it's going to be too late if he's thinking about repaying the favor of a close fire support nuke on the encroaching sub-fleet. And there goes the end of the Salems, all piled up on the beach there. Beautiful sight. Nothing better than dead Cyberyn technology. Some people hang it on their walls and call it art. Who am I to judge? This is now looking extraordinarily bad. Those galaxies are bugged out. That nuke coming up to around 50% complete. But I don't know what BlackDeath can do at this point. Adjuton has just steamrolled through his navy. He's got so much to play with. And BlackDeath charging another attempt with the telemaser. He's gone over to clear the area, I guess, first with his ASFs. There he emerges. There are battleships to worry about, though. Down goes one of the T3 mechs, a T3 power gen, the nuke launcher, but BlackDeath taking huge quantities of fire from not just one but two battleships, the one to the north as well. BlackDeath continuing to shuffle away from them as best he can, but the range on them is so huge. He's got a ways to go to get out of it, and I'm not sure he's going to. Down into the red, 2,300 hit points and falling. Very difficult to dodge, but I think that's going to be the end of it. A strap bomber comes in over the top and finishes off BlackDeath. A very entertaining 53-minute game there from these two. And great work from Adjuton when you consider what position he was in after the first 10 to 15 minutes. He had been knocked out of this northeastern island, was fighting for his life down here to hold on to this one, and still manages to turn that around with some very nice strap bomber play up here and nuke down here. And then, of course, ploughing everything into those sub-hunters is never a bad option for Seraphim. Hope you enjoyed that, guys. As always, more to come from me in the future. In the meantime, stay well and stay safe. This is Gyle, signing out.